Hi everyone, so this will be the video for the chapter 12 problems that's primarily looking at monopolies. I will be doing some of the questions in different ways. Some of them I'll just be like logically thinking through to show you how I would probably think about it if I was taking it as a test. And then I'll also be showing all of the math steps so that you have math as well as the graphs, just to kind of show you a variety, because some of the questions get a little bit repetitive and you're just kind of doing the same thing. So the first one says a firm has $1 million in sales, a Lerner index of 0.65, and a marginal cost of $35. The firm competes against 1,000 other firms in its relevant market. What price does the firm charge its customers? So to solve this, we're going to be using this Lerner index and the marginal cost. The Lerner index formula is defined as price minus marginal cost divided by price. We know our Lerner index is 0.65. Price minus marginal cost over price. We can substitute in our marginal cost of $35. So 0.65 equals P minus 35 divided by P. Now we're solving for P, so we need to multiply both sides by P, so 0.65 P equals P minus 35. Subtract a P from each side, and we'll get 0.35 P negative 0.35 P equals negative 35. Divide both sides by negative 0.35. And we get P equals 100, so our answer is A. Next one has a graph, and it gives us all of our information. It says, what is average variable cost when the firm produces 5,000 headphone sets? So there's two different ways that we can solve this. One, we can look at the graph, and we can go to where Q equals 5,000. And if you are on your computer, this goes a lot better because it's not saved as a PDF. And it'll actually let you touch this particular point on the graph, and it will give you the Y value of that point. But you can also substitute it in, because it's kind of hard to tell exactly where that hits, and maybe your answers were a little bit farther or closer together than the answers were given here. So we know our average variable cost formula up here. We can substitute in Q equals 5,000 for Q into that equation. So average variable cost equals 28 minus 0.005 times 5,000 plus 0.00000, 5,000 squared. And when you put that in your calculator, you get 28. So our answer is D. Next one says, what is the marginal cost when the firm produces 3,000 headphones? So we already know that our average variable cost is 28 minus 0.005 Q plus 0.00001 Q squared, which means that our total variable cost is 28Q minus 0.005 Q squared plus 0.00000 Q to the third. So using that, we can find our marginal cost formula, which we're either taking the derivative of this with respect to Q, or we're plugging it into the formula that we had in the previous chapters. Doesn't really matter. We have 28 minus 0.01 Q plus 0.000003 Q squared. And we're going to substitute 3,000 in for that. So 28 minus 0.01 times 3,000. Which gives us 25. Which you can also look at the graph. If we go to 3,000 and we go up to our marginal cost curve, which is in orangish reddish, is right here. And we see that it's in the middle, so it's 25. But I wanted you to be able to also see the math for at least some of them, just in case the graph doesn't cooperate as well as it should. Problem 4 says, what is the profit maximizing quantity and approximate profit when this quantity is produced? Profit maximizing means that we're looking for the point where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. I went ahead and showed the point on the graph, where if you hover over it, it will give you the information on it so that we can use that information. And we see that this is at Q equals 6,000. And our marginal revenue equals marginal cost is at 76. So the first thing we need to do if we're going to find profit, because profit is defined as total revenue minus total cost, is to find out what the price is. So to find our price, we are going to substitute in 6,000 into this Q equation that I went ahead and starred. So we're going to have Q equals, nope, we're going to substitute in because otherwise we are going to run out of space. So we're going to have 6,000 equals 41,000 minus 500 P plus 0.6 times 45,000 minus 22.5 times 800. And when we solve that, we're going to get P equals 88. Which if we look at our graph, that's reasonable for this point right here. That would be P equals 88. You could also just look at the graph and click on it and get the same information. But again, trying to show you a little bit more of the math behind it so you can use it if you choose to use it. So we know that pi equals our total revenue minus total costs. And total revenue is price times quantity. And total cost is going to be our average variable costs times our quantity minus our fixed costs. And these two things together, when you add them up, give us our total cost. So we are going to have pi equals 88 times 6,000 minus our average variable cost is 6,000, which I already went ahead and solved and got 34. So 34 times 6,000 minus 270,000 gives us $54,000. So our answer is B. Next says, what is the firm's price elasticity of demand at the profit maximizing quantity of output, and what is the learner index? So we know that our price is $88 because we solved for that on the previous slide, and we know that our marginal cost is $76, again, solved for that on the previous slide. So our learner index is price minus marginal cost divided by price. So it's going to be 88 minus 76 divided by 88, which gives us 0.1363, which is roughly 0.14. Our learner index is also defined as 1 over the negative elasticity of demand. So we can use that to solve for our elasticity of demand. So 0.1363 equals 1 over the negative elasticity of demand. Multiply both sides by our negative elasticity of demand, and this turns into 1 divided by 0.1363 equals negative elasticity of demand. So when we do that, we get negative 7.33 equals elasticity of demand. And don't forget that your elasticity of demand should be negative, so if you missed a negative somewhere, that's probably what went wrong. You lost it. So our answer is D. Question 6 says, suppose the firm sets the price at P equals $96. What is the quantity and approximate current profit when this quantity is produced? So we're going to go to where P is $96, and P is this blue line up here. So P is $96 right here. And if you look on your graph, you should be able to actually click it and verify that. That means our quantity is 2,000. So our average variable cost at 2,000, we're just going to substitute 2,000 in for Q and Q squared. And we are going to get 28 minus 0.005 times 2,000 plus 0.000001 times 2,000 squared. So then we're going to have, same as our previous questions, we're going to have pi equals total revenue minus total cost, which is going to be total revenue minus total variable costs minus total fixed costs. So pi equals 96 times 2,000 minus our average variable cost times our quantity. So our average variable cost is 22. So minus 22 times 2,000 minus our total fixed cost at 270,000, which gives us pi equals negative $122,000, which means when they're setting their price to be $96, they're actually losing money. Which is a terrible way to run a monopoly. If you have monopoly power, you're doing something wrong. This one says, what is the revenue maximizing quantity and approximate revenue when this quantity is produced? So I took away the graph because I needed more space to write. Revenue maximizing quantity is going to come from where our marginal revenue is equal to 0. So we know that our quantity is given to us by 41,000 minus 500 P plus 0.6 times 45,000. And all of that is coming from substituting this information in to this equation. And when we multiply that out, we end up with a more accurate or simpler equation of 50,000 minus 500p. So we're going to solve this for p. So we are going to get q minus 50,000 equals negative 500p. Divide by negative 500. Divide by negative 500. And we end up with p equals 100 minus 0.002 q, which means that our marginal revenue is 100 minus 0.004 q. We can set this equal to 0 because that's our revenue maximizing quantity. So 0 equals 100 minus 0.004 q, which gives us q equals 25,000. Then we're going to substitute that back into p. So we have p equals 100 minus 0.002 q. But instead of a q, we're going to put 25,000, which gives us p equals 100 minus 50 equals 50. So that's our price. So then our total revenue is price times quantity, which is 50 times 25,000, which is 1,250,000. Which means that our answer is B. So the next one, since I did the last one with complete math, I'm just going to walk through the logic of what I would do instead of trying to show even more math. What is the profit maximizing quantity and approximate profit when this is produced? So we're looking for where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So we're looking at this point right here in hot pink. We're going to go down and we're just going to look at roughly where we're at. We're slightly above 5,000, below 6,000, closer to 5 than 6. If we look at our answer choices, we can't be 6,000, can't be 7,000, can't be 8,225, which means our quantity has to be 5,282. But then we also have to know, are they making a positive profit or a negative profit? So the way that we can look at that without actually having to do any math is looking at our average total cost curve up here in purple. And our average total cost curve, which I'm going to highlight in a purple so it stands out a little bit more as to what we're looking at, is right there. Our average total cost is greater than our price at this quantity. That means the firm is losing money or making a negative profit. So since average total cost is above P, I'm going to make this Q star just for the sake of writing it out. Q star. The firm is earning negative profit / experiencing a loss. And if we look at our answer choices, the only one where our P of our two that we have left is negative is A. So our answer is A. Sometimes it's nice to know how to actually just logically think your way through it as opposed to just brute force like we did on question 7. Question 9 says, which of the following statements regarding monopolistically competitive firms is true? And the statement that is true is, in the long run, each firm's price will equal its average total cost. That's just pretty much a straight definition, nothing to work out. In monopolistically competitive markets, each firm's price will be greater than its marginal cost. That's one of the perks of it being a monopolistically competitive market. Next question, which of the following is a characteristic of a monopoly market? All of the above. One firm is the only supplier of a product for which there are no substitutes, part of the definition. Entry into the market is blocked, is part of the definition. And the firm can influence market price, also part of the definition. Question 12. In a monopoly market, other firms have no incentive to enter the market. This isn't actually true. Most of the time, firms would love to enter, except entry is blocked. If you see another business is doing really well and earning lots of profits, if you are also a business person, you want to join that market and you want to do the same thing. But you can't do that if entry is blocked. Profits will always be positive because the firm is the only supplier in the market. This isn't necessarily true. Profits could be negative if costs are high. And price is low. Some situations of this occurring are things like electricity in smaller towns, or if you're looking at like cell service in some of those like smaller Texas towns where there's 300 people if you're driving through the middle of nowhere. In situations like this where like you still actually need the service, the people in those cities need to have access to electricity, they need access to internet, cell towers, all of that stuff. You could actually have situations where it's subsidized by the government if they're producing an actual necessity. Which means that our answer is C, because the demand facing the firm is downward sloping because it is the market demand, because they are the only supplier of the good in the market. One method of measuring the extent of a firm's market power is the Lerner index. This is true. Price elasticity of demand for the firm's product. This is how much consumers respond to a change in P. Income elasticity of demand for the firm's product. This is how changes in income affect demand, which doesn't really have anything to do with market power. It's just how demand can change. And the firm that's looking at this likely has no power over their consumers' incomes. So the only thing they're able to change is the Lerner index and the price elasticity of demand, which means our answer is D. In a monopolistically competitive market, firms are small relative to the total market. This is true. No firm has any market power. This is not true. Firms do have power. There is easy entry and exit in the market. This is true. If you want to enter, that's fine. If you want to leave, that's fine. So our answer is E, A, and C. Also, think I misspoke on this question. The only way to measure the firm's market power is looking at things that they're able to control, and they're able to control price, which is part of the Lerner index, and the elasticity of demand. That's why it's both of them. 15 says, which of the following would indicate a relatively large amount of market power? Low cross price elasticity with other products. This means that they are able to increase their price and consumers are less likely to switch to another good. So maybe that means people are really, really invested in their particular item, their particular product, even though there's other substitutes, or maybe there's just really not that many and the substitutes aren't very comparable. 16 says, what price will the monopoly charge if production costs are constant and equal to $10? So we are going to have our line here. And then we're going to take this all the way up to our demand curve. And we see that our long run marginal cost equals marginal revenue at Q1. And then go up to your demand curve. To find P. And we find P is at 20, so our answer is D. Profit maximizing level of output. Profit maximizing level of output comes from marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Which is right here. Use straight down. And we find that it's at 60 units. So A. The firm will sell its output at a price of, so this is just a continuation of question 17. So marginal revenue equals marginal cost at Q equals 60. So we already said this. We're going to go up to demand because we don't actually have a curve to plug it into mathematically. We're using the graphs. So when we take that all the way up to our demand curve and look at the price that it's associated with, we see that our price is $5. So D. Monopolistic competition is similar to perfect competition in that there are a large number of firms. Firms earn economic profit. This is not true in perfect competition. Firms earn zero economic profits in the long run in perfect competition. And firms face downward sloping demand curves. This is also not true in perfect competition. They face horizontal demand curves at the firm level in perfect competition. So our answer is A. The following figure shows the demand and cost curves facing a firm with market power in the short run. The firm earns profits of, so we're going to go find our marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Which is right here. We're going to take that to 60. We're going to go all the way up to demand, which we've already done, and we see that it's at 5. So Q equals 60, P equals 5. Then we're going to look at our average total cost, because we know that profits is total revenue minus total cost. And with this, we can find our total revenue. So we need a way to also find our total profits, or our total costs, excuse me. So we're going to look at our average total cost curve, which is this purple curve. And when we do that, we see that it's at 3. So average total cost at Q equals 60, because we care about the same quantity, is $3. So that means that pi, defined as total revenue minus total cost, which can be broken down to price times quantity minus average total cost times quantity, is going to be 60 times 5 minus 60 times 3, which is going to give us 120, which is B. A monopolist will maximize profits by producing the level of output at which the firm's total revenue exceeds total cost by the largest amount. That's true. Marginal revenue equals marginal cost. That's true. The last unit of output produced adds the same amount to total revenue as the total cost. This is actually the definition of marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So our answer is all of the above. A monopolist who suffers loss in the short run will exit in the long run if there are no plant sizes that will result in economic profit that is greater than or equal to 0. That's just kind of a definition. To maximize its profit, a firm with 2 plants should produce the output at which total marginal cost equals total marginal revenue. This is true. That is the highlighter. Choose the profit maximizing output, then allocate it equally between the 2 plants. Equal doesn't necessarily minimize costs or maximize profit. It could, but it's not actually a rule that it will. Allocate output so that marginal cost is the same in two plants. This is true. So our answer is both A and C. A firm is producing 10,000 units of output in two plants, A and B, and each plant is producing 5,000 units of output. The marginal cost in plant A is $10 and the marginal cost in plant B is $6. To reduce the cost of producing 10,000 units, the firm should produce less in A and more in B. And the reason for this is that your goal is to produce where marginal cost of A is equal to the marginal cost of B. And the only way that you will get there is if you decrease production in A because it's higher, and increase production in B because it's lower until they're equal. If demand is estimated to be Q equals 240 minus 6P, the inverse demand function is, to find the inverse demand function, you take your demand and solve for P. So we have Q equals 240 minus 6P. Subtract 240 from each side, so Q minus 240 equals negative 6P. Divide by negative 6. So we get 40 minus 1/6 Q equals P. 40 minus 0.1667 Q equals P, which means our answer choice is A. If demand is estimated to be Q equals 240 minus 6P, the marginal revenue function is. So first we need to solve for inverse demand, which we just did. And we got that that was P equals 0.1667 Q plus 40. Then our marginal revenue function is going to be the same intercept, but 2 times as steep as this inverse demand function. So it's going to be marginal revenue equals 0.333. It's a negative Q plus 40. And that is entirely my fault. I missed the negative up there. So we have A. And this came from this slide. I just forgot the negative and I moved it around. '27, in a monopolistically competitive industry in a long-run equilibrium, each firm is making a normal profit. What all of the following could be a barrier to entry except Rising long-run marginal costs. Some of these are just definitions from the book, from the notes. A manager of a firm with market power faces the marginal revenue product and average revenue product curve shown below, incurs weekly costs of $18,000. The firm employs a single variable input labor, which costs $600 per worker. Given the above, in order to maximize profit, the management should hire blank workers. This means that 600 is our short-run marginal cost. So we're going to take 600 and we're going to go to our marginal revenue product of labor and go down. Let me see that they should hire 12 workers. $30, a monopolist will always charge a price higher than average cost. Not necessarily. We showed in our example earlier that did not. Will always charge a price higher than marginal cost. This is true. Always produce a level of output at which marginal revenue equals marginal cost. If they are being smart, that is also true. So our answer is D. And that is the end. If you have questions, please email me, let me know, and I will do the best I can to help you get it figured out. Have a good week.